We are the Association for Child and Adolescent Mental Health, or ACAM for short.
Hello, welcome to the In Conversation podcast series for the Association for Child and Adolescent Mental Health, or ACAM for short. I'm Clara Faria, an ACAM Young Person Ambassador, and in today's episode, I have the pleasure to talk to Tanatswa Chikaura from the University of Cambridge. Tanatswa is a mental health researcher and advocate. She is the founder and director of Ndinewe Foundation, a youth-led mental health organization that seeks to promote good mental health for children, adolescents, and youth in Zimbabwe. For her mental health advocacy work, Tanatswa was acknowledged in 2023 with a prestigious Diana Award. She is also completing a PhD in the Department of Psychiatry in the University of Cambridge, looking at suicide prevention, trauma, and mental health among autistic children and adults. Today, we will be discussing her research journey, her mental health advocacy work, and how she conciliates both. If you are a fan of our In Conversation series, please subscribe on your preferred streaming platform. Let us know how we did with a rating or review and share with friends and colleagues. Welcome, Tanatswa. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm very lucky to be your colleague in the department. Could you start with a brief introduction to our audience, explaining a bit of your research to them?
Thank you so much, Clara. I'm very happy to be here today, and thank you for the lovely introduction. So I'm currently nearing the end of my first year for my PhD, which is very, very exciting. 2.5 more years to go. I recently laughed at myself and I was like, I've literally just been in education for the whole of my life. I was born and then I started doing school and I never looked back. But my research focuses on mental health, suicide prevention, and trauma among autistic people. It's an area that I'm very, very passionate about. And sometimes I really laugh at myself that I have an advocacy versus science conundrum, because sometimes you get so caught up in the science, but you also want to do your advocacy work, and it's very, very hard to balance. But my work really strives to ensure that autistic people's voices are heard, number one. Number two, the services that they receive meet their needs and they're effective as well. And also, it's a safe space to talk, it's a safe space to receive the support that they do want. So that's my work at the moment, and it's going very well.
Brilliant. And well, congrats on completing your first year PhD and congrats on becoming an official PhD candidate. I'm sure you do a brilliant job. And I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. And I'm sure that our audience, especially the early career researchers, will be fascinated by your journey. Going back a little bit to the beginning of your research journey in the UK, well, I know you initially moved here to do an MPhil in Translational Neurosciences in Cambridge. And could you tell us a little bit more about how is the experience and the process of adapting to a new country?
I came to do the MPhil in Basic and Translational Neuroscience program, which is absolutely fantastic. I 100% recommend it for people that are trying to get the fundamentals of neuroscience and understand its translational aspects, and also just figure out like the area that you want to research later on in your life if you are considering becoming an academic. I'll start with the application journey itself. Applying to Cambridge, it was like a mix of emotions. It was very surreal because at one point, I never thought I had the typical profile of a Cambridge student. I didn't know whether, I don't know, intelligent enough in quotation marks. I just didn't know if I could get in. Applying for it, I was like, okay, I qualify. On paper, I do qualify. So I'm just going to put in my application. And really, it took a lot of courage on my part because I was very, very scared. I was very, very nervous. I had applied for postgrad programs in other institutions, and it wasn't as terrifying. Then actually getting in and being able to come here, it just felt, again, I'll say surreal because it was a different environment. It was a different climate as well. It was very different from home. I did all my education in Zimbabwe. So moving to a new country, trying to adapt to the weather, don't even get me started on the weather, and just get used to everything that happened, some of the culture shock. It was a lot to take in, but the program itself was brilliant because I knew after undergrad I wanted to pursue an MPhil or a master's program. But what I didn't know was which area of research do I actually want to focus on, because I had so many things that I was interested in. I was interested in like basically all of neuroscience research. And I had to really narrow it down to find my niche. And the program helped me work through that because it's really diverse and it's both taught and research. So you have that opportunity to attend seminars to understand all of the programs that are happening across neuroscience in Cambridge. And then you have the choice to choose which lab you want to do your research project in. And it just gives you great insight to what pursuing a PhD could look like.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that, especially your MPhil experience. It's so valuable to our early career audience because I think many people also want to pursue a research career, but they are not really certain on like what specific research topic they want to pursue. And about the climate, the comment you made on UK climate, I can 100% empathize with the difficulty in adapting. I'm still myself in that very process as well. Moving to your current PhD research, have you always been interested in studying anxiety and autism and trauma in young people, or was that a gradual process that matured during your MPhil, as you commented? And just to contextualize to our audience, in Cambridge, in order to apply for a PhD in our department, you need to write a research proposal. And I wanted to ask you if you have any tips for our audience, for them for choosing their research topic and supervisor.
So I'm going to break it down a bit. So starting with choosing my research area, when I was still on the ground in Zimbabwe with the foundation, because now I work with it virtually since I'm not really in Zimbabwe on the ground that much, but I do go back home. So it's always nice to then also get into the field. But when I was on the ground, I used to do lots of work with an autism school. And when I would talk to the parents, I would ask them questions about mental health for their kids and for themselves as well as parents. Are the parents themselves getting enough support, especially if they happen to be in areas that are stigmatized? But I'd also want to know whether their kids are getting support. What type of support are their kids getting, and do they feel like their kids are getting support that helps them? And to my surprise, I had one conversation with a parent who said, if I do want my child to receive mental health support, sometimes I'm basically told to go away because people may say, oh, it's just, your child is autistic. So what other extra support do you want? And people really didn't understand their kids' mental health needs. And it just seemed like there was just a lack of services for their kids to thrive to the best of their ability. Because of that reason, I developed a deep passion for autism and mental health, especially autism and mental health research. And I told myself that this is an area that I really wanted to pursue. And at the same time, I was really, really interested in dementia research. I really enjoyed it. I was fascinated by it. Finishing my undergrad, I was really interested in it. I came across it when I was doing one of my undergrad courses. So that's also an area that I really wanted to pursue. And when it came to selecting a research project for my MPhil, I actually did a dementia project. I focused on frontotemporal lobe degeneration. But when I had to then write my research proposal and choose what I wanted to do for like the next 3.5 years, I decided that autism was the area I wanted to focus on, not only because I have a deep passion for mental health advocacy or for the area itself, but there's so much that we still need to know, and there's so much work that still needs to be done. Getting into mental health advocacy, it was because there were so many suicide cases that were happening when I was an undergrad, and that really affected me because I wanted to know why. I kept on asking why. When I couldn't get the answer to the why, I kept on asking, what are we then doing? Not only the people in charge of ensuring their services there or the practitioners, but what are we doing as a community? What am I doing as Tanatswa and what are you doing as Clara? Because at the end of the day, we all have some form of responsibility that we need to carry. And no one could answer those questions. So that's how I also then got into suicide prevention and then learning that autistic people are at a very high risk of suicide, it was a no-brainer for me that all of these stars really aligned. And this is the path that I was supposed to go on. And it's something that I've been building on for the past 6 years. So why not then start my research career based on that? So I guess it was years of inspiration that fed into me eventually making my decision to get on this path. And for the research proposal, I'll start by selecting the supervisors. If you're thinking about applying, I really encourage you to write emails to your potential supervisors and ask to have a conversation with them. Ask if they have any availability to jump on a Zoom call. If we'll ask, have a meeting with them. But either way, email them way in advance before application season starts. Ask them if they are taking students. If they are taking students ideally know what their research is about, but ask them if they feel like your research interests fits in well with their own research that they are currently doing, and get that insight. Also, if you can, if you know who their students are, perhaps email their students, people that are in their lab, that are in their research groups, just to get a feel to understand what the research group is like or what the lab culture is like. I always say to my friends, I think I'm very, very lucky because I've got two amazing supervisors. And I'm not just saying that because this is a podcast. I have amazing supervisors. They are really, really great. And I think I'll just take this opportunity to just say, do not underestimate the role your supervisors play in your PhD role or in your academic career, because it's a mentoring role. Yes, they are your supervisor, but there's that element of mentorship as well. And when you're looking for a mentor, you want someone who understands you, who can also guide you, who can also help you discover your underlying skills and talents and help bring out the best out of you. I'll just say reach out to them. That's very, very important. Start your application early. I feel like this has been a very long answer, so I'll pause there for now.
No, that was an amazing and very comprehensive answer. And I can definitely back Tanatswa's advice on the sending emails part. Like, I know that you think, oh, those researchers are super busy and they're not going to answer. Some of them won't. That's why it's important to identify multiple interesting supervisors, but definitely reaching out by email and asking for a Zoom call. It's one of the best ways, I think.
And also, I just want to add that if you are looking for a PhD supervisor and you talk to someone and they say, oh, okay, I see that your work is really interesting, but perhaps you don't really fit in the work I'm doing. How about you go and talk to this person, a colleague of mine? Don't take that as a rejection and don't then build up any attitude towards that PI. Try your best to then say, okay, thank you, but are you able to still give me feedback on what I may produce or to give me some form of guidance? When I was looking for a PhD supervisor, I spoke to lots of supervisors, and most of them really helped me find my now supervisors. So there was a referral pathway that was then created, but they were all very instrumental in how I then gathered my thoughts, got clarity on the projects I wanted to do, and eventually said, okay, this is what I'm doing. This is the path I'm going on.
One of the things I find most impressive about you and your work is how you're able to juggle your PhD in Cambridge with your mental health foundation in Zimbabwe. And also, we're not publicizing ages in this podcast, but I know for a fact that when you created the foundation, you were very young. And I would just wanted to ask you, like, what inspired you to do it and how the idea for creating the foundation came up. Did you use any models for inspiration? Because creating a foundation from the ground at such a young age is something that like amazes me. And yeah, if you could tell us a little bit more about it.
Thank you so much for your kind words as well. It means so much to me because sometimes it can get so challenging. Just hearing some of these things really reassures me and strengthens me to keep on going. Starting the foundation, I will go back to what I said earlier about how I got into my mental health advocacy work and the unfortunate incidences that were happening around me. I then decided to start blogging when that was going on. I was in my first year of my undergrad degree, and all of these unfortunate things were happening. And it wasn't okay that we were just quiet about it as a community or as a society or as a people. So I decided to start blogging. And I started a blog. And on that blog, I wrote anything and everything. I was doing my psychology degree. And to be honest, I was in my first year, fresh out of high school. I didn't really know much about what I was doing. I was reading textbooks and attending classes and doing all of these tests. But to be honest, in your first year, I mean, we've all been in our first years. We're kind of just trying to juggle things and see what's going on. So I didn't really know what I was doing. So I made the decision to write about my own experiences instead, in times where I felt distressed, what I've done, the coping mechanisms that I've had. And then as I gradually grew into my degree, that's when I started incorporating some of the psychology concepts into the work I was writing. And to my surprise, people were responding. People were opening up. People were saying, what you're talking about is not new for me. I have experienced this before, but I just don't know where to get the support, who to talk to, or where to get more knowledge. And also, I want to be able to join you in your movement for mental health advocacy. And I was like, oh, wow, there are people that want, number one, safe spaces to have conversations about mental health, but there are also people that want to join me in this movement of raising awareness and providing those safe spaces. And I realized that writing was not enough because there's only so much that you can do with writing. It's great, it's perfect, and it's a good stepping stone, but I wanted something that would then help build a community. And I was like, okay, maybe a charity will work. And to be honest, when I said I wanted to start a mental health charity, I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, girl, where are you even going to get money to start a mental health charity? But I started saving up. I started communicating my vision with family members. I started communicating with people that this is what I wanted to do and this is why I want to do it. I sat down with my parents. I had a conversation with them. I said, this is what I've decided to do. And they were very, very supportive about it. And the first step I took was literally writing an organizational profile and calling lawyers and saying, okay, this is my organizational profile. This is what I want to do. I want us to register this as a trust in Zimbabwe. And they said, okay, this is the process. And I was like, let's do it. It took a couple of months, but I was very patient about it. And in November 2021, we registered Ndinewe Foundation as a trust in Zimbabwe. And it was a big thing for me. It was an emotional thing as well because it was like, okay, I've done all of this advocacy work and we now have something like we have something to show that this is what we've created for young people to be able to get a safe space to come and learn and grow and heal. And since then, we have been going strong and we have an amazing group of volunteers as well. So that's how Ndinewe Foundation started.
Wow, that's a really, really inspirational story. And to follow up on that, what are your current main goals with the foundation? What project did the foundation achieve do you feel most proud of so far?
There are a couple of things that I'm really proud of. Our main goal, our main aim as a foundation is to ensure that we're creating a safe space for young people to thrive, for young people to receive support. But most importantly, we want the mental health education that we provide to be tailor-made to the Zimbabwean context. We want it to fit, we want it to be culturally relevant. And I think the way we are really trying to do that is to ensure that we have all these focus group discussions with young people. We understand young people's thoughts, but also ultimately we want to close the generational gap between our parents' generation and ourselves as well. We're both speaking the same language, but we're also not passing generational trauma from one generation to another. So those are some of the main things that we're trying to address as an organization. I'll just pick two main things. So in July 2022, we launched a mental health booklet, which was endorsed by the Allied Health Practitioners Council of Zimbabwe. So the Allied Health Practitioners Council is the health regulatory body in Zimbabwe. And this mental health booklet focuses on providing mental health information to young people. What is our understanding of mental health? What are some of the risk factors? What are some of the coping mechanisms? This is something that I'm really, really proud of. It took a lot of work to do as well. The second thing that I'm really, really proud of is our mental health education course. So we started a mental health education course 2 years ago. The main purpose of this course is to ensure that young people are empowered to make decisions about themselves, about their own mental health, but also to make a change and to champion change in their own communities. When I started my advocacy journey, I didn't have any guidance or any mentorship. I didn't know where to go. And I feel like I was very, very fortunate to be able to talk to some of the people I talked to and get the opportunities and obviously continue my academic life as well. But it was very, very hard. So the purpose of this course is to ensure that people are not starting from scratch. If you're interested and you want to know more about mental health, this is, someone's opportunity to do so. And also, if you want to receive inspiration about, potential research you can do in the space, this is also a great opportunity to learn that there's so many things I didn't know. And this is what this course is trying to cover.
Okay, I feel you've spoke about so many important points in that answer, but just to cover some of the things you've said regarding the generational gap, I think that's a universal truth. In Brazil, that's definitely also a challenge. And here in the UK, talking to some friends who were born here as well, I know young people who have been referred to as like this snowflake generation. And as you said, like people saying, oh, back in the day, we had much worse and we had to deal with much more stuff. And I agree. I totally agree with you. I don't think that way of framing things is helpful. And I think also, well, very fortunately, speaking from a research perspective, mental health research has evolved a lot in the past decades. And while we still have a long, long way to go, now we have access to better treatments, not only pharmacological treatments, but also we have access to better therapies that we know are effective in treating some of the most common mental health disorders. So it's good that things are different because 50 years ago we didn't have half of the knowledge we have today. But I definitely that creates a generational gap. And I think the work you've been doing with your foundation trying to address it is brilliant, especially trying to address it from a culturally informed perspective, because as you've said, the mental health dialogue is also so influenced by culture. And I think sometimes me and you who are from low and middle income countries, what we see a lot, especially when it comes to interventions and stuff like that, is like people trying to implement an intervention that has been tested in a higher income country and just trying to immediately transfer that to a low and middle income context. And I mean, even among low and middle income countries, there's huge heterogeneity. So I think that the culturally informed perspective your foundation is adopting is so important. Just to shift the focus of the conversation a little bit, because it's not all roses and we all have our challenges. I wanted to ask you, what do you think has been your greatest academic challenge so far?
Okay, so my greatest academic challenge so far has been learning how to code. Learning R has been a big challenge. I'm not gonna lie. It's a really, my supervisor calls it a really steep learning curve, but once you get it, and then it flattens out and you're good to go. And I completely agree with that one. I think it was very difficult for me, but also I think I will say trying to balance academic life and personal challenges, especially after moving to a new country, is really, really hard. I know it's not completely academic itself, but thinking from a holistic perspective, right? So everything is all linked somehow. I will say that's also one of the big challenges. Also, imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome, I think, trumps all of those other challenges that I've just talked about. The reason why I say it does that is because if one is not careful, one may feel like they don't deserve to be in the position they're in, or they don't belong in a specific space or environment, especially if you're surrounded by so many high achieving people, people that are doing amazing, amazing work. You can question your abilities, you can question your skills. And I mean, I'm told that everyone has that. People always say everyone in Cambridge has that at some point in their lives, but it's so important to be able to circle back to where you started and say, okay, how did I even get there? I got there because I had the abilities to get there, I had the skill set to get there. And now I'm building on my skill set, I'm building on my abilities. And something that I said to one mentee was that whenever you start comparing yourself to someone, or you start feeling like you don't belong in a space, you have to ask yourself, number one, how old is this person and how old am I? I mean, if someone has been doing a PhD for 4 years, of course they're going to know how to do R more than you. You just started. So you, you really have to be realistic with some of your expectations as an individual. So learning how to be realistic about where I am was a really huge challenge, because I was coming from a space where I've done my undergrad. And obviously, after 3, 4 years of your undergrad degree, you now know what they've taught you in those 4 years, and you feel good about it, and you've achieved what you wanted to achieve, and everything is going great. And then you come and you realize, okay, I'm starting from square one again. So I think that's been one of the major challenges for me, but I'm working on it.
Just also to add to that, I 100% empathize with the R thing. A really important point I think you brought up was the comparing thing. As you said, I think it's so important to ask, well, one, where is that person now? Like, of course, a fourth-year PhD student is going to have much more advanced coding skills than you because he or she is in the fourth year while we are just starting. But also, people have different backgrounds. So sometimes you're going to have a first-year PhD student who codes extremely well, but then you look at that person's undergrad and it was in computer science. Because one of the cool things about mental health, in my opinion, is that it's so interdisciplinary that it attracts people from the most varied backgrounds. So you have psychologists, you have doctors, you have computational science, you have all sorts of people with different backgrounds looking at the same topics. I also hear that some imposter syndrome is something that is common in Cambridge and everyone gets it every once in a while, but I feel not everyone talks about it that openly. So when you put it out there so bravely as you always do, it really opens up the dialogue. And speaking of inspiration, I wanted to ask you, do you have any advice for young people, especially young people from non-traditional backgrounds and low and middle income countries who want to apply for postgraduate training in the UK? Any particularly good online sources of support?
I will say that firstly, do not doubt yourself. You can do it. That's like my main message to any young person who is thinking about applying for postgrad studies. Do not doubt yourself. It's okay to feel scared. It's part of the process, because you're making a very big step. It's a big decision. You're making a big decision about your life. So it's completely normal to feel scared. Try your best to do as much research as you can to understand the type of program that you want to do. So, if you're just finishing your undergraduate degree, for example, and you're thinking of doing an MPhil, do so much research about the type of MPhils that are there, or the type of master's programs that are there, so that you get the right fit for you, so that it's like a lock and key approach. I always use the example of my own MPhil program because it was really important. It was really instrumental in shaping me up for a PhD. And I knew I wanted to do a PhD. And it was a program that literally trained you and prepared you for a PhD. So if you are thinking of doing things that are a bit more clinical, for example, I did psychology, but I came on to do an MPhil in neuroscience, as opposed to doing a master's in clinical psychology, for example, for me to then eventually train to become a clinical psychologist. If you're thinking of wanting to do, clinical work and to then become a health practitioner, perhaps, obviously you'd then have to go a different path. But also don't think that limits you or closes the door for research, because there are so many people that and these are things that we're not told as well. When you're doing your degree, it seems like there's only one career path that's there for you. It's either you're going to be a researcher, or you're going to then decide that, no, I'm then going to go and, get into health practice. But you can do both. So it's important to also find mentors. So if you're thinking of a specific path to walk on, look for people that have walked the same path as you, or a similar path as you. Reach out to them and seek for that advice. Hear them out, talk to them, email them, have a meeting, just to get a feel of what it may look like for you if you continue going down that path. As for the online resources that people may want to get access to, I'm not really sure if there are any resources in particular that are there for people worldwide or like globally or like in the global south, for example. But I will say if you're from Zimbabwe, for example, there's a Zimbabwe Research Network, which is very, very helpful, especially for early career researchers or people that want guidance. And that's something that's, if you are Zimbabwean, you could access. So if you're from other countries, you could try to find out if there's similar type of networks that have been created, and those can be very helpful in getting mentors.
What you've just said about mentorship is so, so important. So, for instance, Tanatswa has a background in psychology, and in the UK, there's a very specific path if you want to become a clinical psychologist, which would be a psychologist that does the clinical work, but also you could or could not be involved in research. It's the same thing for clinicians. So I'm a junior doctor, and now I'm taking a year of training to do an MPhil, and in the future I will go back to clinical training. And then especially for clinical academics, so if you have a medical background, there's a very well delineated pathway you can take. You're allowed to take time out of training to do a research degree, either an MPhil or a PhD. So with clinical academia, it's also so important to find mentors. Well, Tanatswa and I, we share a mentor in common, Professor Tamsin Ford, and she's great. And I wouldn't be doing a tenth of the things I'm doing if it were not for her guidance. So, and also everything started with an email, just to put that on the record. So I definitely think that all the advice Tanatswa gave about looking out for potential mentors and people that have walked similar paths that you want to walk, you wish to pursue in your future, it's gold, because it also inspires you to see that it's possible. And also, just because you didn't mention, because you're a very modest person, but there is all of the advice Tanatswa gave is great. She's also a very good blogger. And if I'm not mistaken, you just launched a blog last week, giving tips for postgraduate applicants. So I definitely think you could access that as well. And in the page for this podcast, we will link up some of Tanatswa's resources, and we will also link up the website to her foundation if you want to take a look. There are also other similar resources out there. So there's always postgraduate students who say that they're available to reach out if you wish to. And that's also a really good way to get application tips and to get a feel of the group you're looking to apply to. So thank you so much, Tanatswa, for sharing your research and your inspirational journey with us today. For more details on Tanatswa's work, please visit the ACAM website, which is www.acam.org. And you can also have a look at our Twitter at ACAM. Also, make sure to have a look at her foundation website and her social media, which will be linked in the page of this podcast. ACAM is spelled ACAMH. And do keep an eye out for other podcasts in the In Conversation series. Don't forget to follow us on your preferred streaming platform. And let us know if you enjoyed the podcast with a rating or review. And do share with friends and colleagues.